Hello, I'm Alex Dunn reporting for Hullfire Music, and today we're with Paul Jackson, who's the owner and promoter of the new Adelphi club on De Grey Street. First, how did the idea for setting up the Adelphi come about, and how did you get involved in running it?
Well, I just had a really shit job, and along with two other guys, in fact, we were looking at places. We looked at places like the Tower and the Welly Club and the old White House on Adelphi Road. And after about 6 months of working with two other people and not enjoying sharing decisions, I decided to go it alone and commenced a search for the cheapest place in Hull, which was the Adelphi.
Right.
Blagged 45 grand out of a brewery without ever having worked behind a bar before, and there you go.
Yeah, excellent. And are you musical yourself, or just a music fan?
I'm not one of the world's great musicians. I was a soloist in the church choir when I was young. I did have a very nice voice when I was young. I was taught to play the piano at the age of about 8, and I once possessed a guitar and probably learned 2 chords. But before I started at the Adelphi, I'd had a solid 14 or 15 years going to sort of several gigs per week,
right,
and had a pretty enormous collection of records. So I was a music fan, and the Adelphi is a place for music fans,
yeah,
and musicians.
So yourself and the Adelphi have become renowned for being connected with the rise of so many household names such as Oasis, Pulp, Radiohead and the House Martins. And I know that Paul Heaton and Jarvis Cocker have made visits back here since gaining fame. Do you have any interesting stories or memories about any of those bands?
I mean, it's always lovely when people who've played the Adelphi sort of come back. And in the case of Jarvis and people like Paul, they've retained their integrity, they haven't changed or anything like that. I mean, Jarvis is a lovely guy, as is Paul, and as are Radiohead and sort of stuff like that, yeah. But to be quite honest, my main focus, my main source of enjoyment is seeing bands when they're at their best, and that is invariably the time when they release their first or second albums, rather than sort of 10 or 12 years down the line when they've been had their pockets filled many years since, and they become flabby and not very interesting. So yeah.
So do you have a favourite artist who's played at the Adelphi so far?
No, well, I mean, I don't know how many bands and artists have played at the Adelphi over the years, and the answer to that would vary from one day to the next. But there are a lot of things that have given me a great deal of pleasure over the years. And amongst the household names, because you like household names, I would say Radiohead and Pulp were probably the 2 greatest bands who sort of played the Adelphi.
The Adelphi seems to put on nights with acts from across the musical spectrum, from drum and bass to jazz and so on. Do you have any preference about what acts or genre you put on?
The thing about being in my position, actually, and as I say, so many of you music fans, and I mean, I am a music fan, and I listen to probably as much music as anybody in the city.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do it properly, you can't actually judge types of music. You judge the people who come and see it, and if the people are all right, you've got to accept that the music's okay. If they're just coming along to get pissed to it, or take drugs to it, or cop off to it, they're not really music fans. That happens in a mainstream place. But if they're really into the music and they're a pleasure to have around, then the music's all right.
Right. The Musicians' Night that's held every Monday has become well known. It always seems to be buzzing whenever I've been. So why do you think that's become so popular?
I think it's been popular for probably 24 years. I think it's a combination of circumstances. I think probably by comparison with other open mics, you get a pretty good sound. You get a greater diversity of acts, a greater spread of standards. You can literally get anything from somebody who's on the stage for the first time to something that's as good as it gets.
Yeah.
And it's never the same 2 weeks running. And it takes place in what is a magical performance space. It's a very, very good performance space. It's the Adelphi. I mean, it's got its strengths and weaknesses, but one of its strengths is that room with its acoustics. And it is a magical performance space.
What do you think of Hull's music scene at the moment? The state of it?
Well, Hull's music scene scores on its ability to understand that a career in music depends on breaking outside Hull.
Yeah.
So I think if anybody in Hull bands thinks they've made it when they're sort of big in Hull, it's not necessarily the case. And you have to think in more worldly terms of both your sort of music and your sort of culture. It's not sufficient necessarily to get on stage when you're absolutely trolleyed and think that people are going to appreciate that all over the world. That might be appreciated in Hull, won't necessarily be appreciated anywhere else, and it won't necessarily attract anybody to make an investment in your band. So over the years, it's always been judged partially on that sort of standard that I've set. At the present time, I would think I would probably give Hull about sort of 6 out of 10.
Right.
It's sort of doing all right.
Yeah.
Not too spectacular.
Stan Cullimore from the House Martins actually graduated from Hull University.
Yeah.
Do you think having the university here influences the scene at all? Or
Well, it has to. Because there are so many students, and amongst sort of 20 or 1,000 students, there are about 2 people who are interested in music and will come to places like this. In the beginning, when I wanted to create a place for people who were away from home for the first time, just to take that idea a little bit further, the idea was to sort of dovetail the student population in with sort of local people in the same situation. Because, of course, one of the problems with Hull, and it was particularly noticeable in the 80s, it was a city that was typified by sort of low horizons, low expectations.
yeah.
That was something that wanted to change, and I think we did to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Through music and through that vision. And we're more than most places, we've always had a place where a lot of people and students mix in a harmonious environment.
Yeah. Okay. There always seems to be rumours of the Adelphi's closure. What is the future looking like for the Adelphi and for local music scenes across the country, do you think?
Well, that's a fairly complicated one. I mean, the Adelphi will always be an exercise in defying gravity and making your own weather. I mean, that goes without saying, and nobody will ever make any money out of it. But I've no plans to go anywhere, and we are surviving at the moment. There are lots of things to worry about British music, but we won't really go into that.
Yeah.
The homogenisation of our music culture is particularly disturbing at the present time with companies like Clear Channel creating monopolies.
Right,
taking over all the profitable aspects of the music industry. So. But we're still here and we're still looking forward to continuing.
And finally, is there anything else you'd like to say to Hullfire's readers about the Adelphi and what it's about?
No, just listen to the word of mouth. Check us out. You've got to check out what's going on in Adelphi.
Yeah.
The chances are it's probably stuff you've never heard of, but it's stuff that you might hear about in the future. And the best shows in Hull will happen,
Excellent. Thank you very much for